The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Zethric stepped forward to address the assembly. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep concern among her species, the Vorelans. "We have received troubling news from the Kepler Research Station," she announced. "The humans have done it again." Murmurs spread through the vast hall. Representatives from 12 different civilizations shifted in their seats. The crystalline beings from Nexus Prime hummed with nervous energy. The towering Mekari delegates lowered their massive heads. Even the ancient Eldari, who rarely showed emotion, exchanged worried glances. High Counselor Tormek, a gray-skinned elder of the Mekari species, raised his hand for silence. His voice boomed across the chamber. "What exactly have the humans discovered now?" Zethric pulled up a holographic display. "They have solved the resonance equation." Gasps filled the room. The resonance equation was a mathematical problem that had puzzled galactic scientists for over 50,000 years. The Eldari had first discovered it carved into the walls of an ancient temple on a dead world. Countless civilizations had tried to solve it. All had failed. Most had simply given up and declared it unsolvable. "That is impossible," said Counselor Vrel of the Nexus Crystallines. His body flickered with disbelief. "Our greatest minds worked on that equation for 3,000 years. We could not even understand what it was asking." "The humans solved it in 18 months, Zethric replied. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded proof. Others wanted to know how this could have happened. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Tormek banged his fist on his podium. The sound echoed like thunder. "Silence! Ambassador Zethric, explain how this happened. Start from the beginning." Zethric nodded and began her report. The story had started 2 years ago when humanity first joined the Galactic Council. They were a young species, barely 300 years into space travel. Most civilizations did not pay much attention to them at first. Young species came and went. Most never amounted to much. But humans were different. Within their first year, they had solved the barrier problem, a riddle that had stopped faster-than-light communication for millennia. The solution was elegant and simple, so simple that it embarrassed the scientists who had worked on it before. "How did you not see this?" a human physicist named Dr. Sarah Chen had asked during her presentation. The answer was right there in the base equations. You just had to flip the polarity. The Vorelans had worked on that problem for 800 years. No one had thought to flip the polarity. After that, the galactic community started watching humans more closely. They seemed to have a strange talent for seeing solutions that others missed. Some called it luck. Others called it recklessness. The humans just called it thinking outside the box. 6 months after the barrier problem, humans tackled the gravity wells of Thesson. These were strange anomalies in space that pulled ships off course. Thousands of vessels had been lost to them over the centuries. The Mekari had built warning beacons around them and told everyone to stay away. A human engineer named Marcus Webb had a different idea. He flew directly into one of the wells with a small ship equipped with sensors. Everyone expected him to die. Instead, he emerged on the other side with a complete map of the well's internal structure. "It is not a trap," he reported. "It is a tunnel. Someone built these as shortcuts through space. They just forgot to leave instructions." The Mekari were embarrassed. They had been treating an ancient highway system as a natural hazard for 12,000 years. These early successes caught the attention of the Eldari. They were the oldest surviving civilization in the galaxy, over 2 million years old. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They kept records of everything. An Eldari historian named Seelith reached out to the human scientific community. He was curious about their methods. What made them so good at solving problems that others could not? "We do not give up," Dr. Chen told him. "When something seems impossible, we just try harder. We come at it from different angles. We question everything, even the things everyone agrees are true. Seelith found this fascinating. The Eldari had a different approach. When a problem proved too difficult, they preserved it for future generations. They believed that solutions would come in time, perhaps millions of years in the future. There was no rush. But what if the solution is needed now? Dr. Chen asked. Seelith had no answer. The Eldari did not think that way. This cultural difference explained a lot. The Eldari shared their records with the humans. They showed them the great unsolved mysteries of the galaxy, problems that civilizations had puzzled over for ages, riddles left behind by species that had gone extinct long ago. The humans were thrilled. They saw it as a challenge. Where other species saw impossible barriers, humans saw puzzles waiting to be cracked. The resonance equation was one of these ancient mysteries. It had been found on a world called Nexar Prime, carved into the walls of a temple that was over 100,000 years old. The civilization that built it was long gone. They left no other records, only this one equation. The problem was that no one knew what the equation meant. It used symbols that no one recognized. It referenced concepts that did not exist in any known mathematical system. Scholars had spent millennia just trying to translate it. Humans took a different approach. They did not try to understand the equation first. Instead, they studied the temple itself. They measured every wall, every carving, every angle. They mapped the entire structure in 3 dimensions. A young mathematician named James Okonkwo noticed something strange. The temple was not just a building. It was a diagram. The walls were not random. They formed patterns that matched parts of the equation. The builders did not expect us to solve it with math alone, James explained to his colleagues. They expected us to walk through it. The temple is the answer. His team spent months working through this idea. They rebuilt the temple in virtual reality. They walked through it thousands of times, following different paths. Each path revealed new parts of the solution. After 18 months, they had it, the complete solution to the resonance equation. The answer itself was remarkable. The equation described a way to fold space without using energy. It was a blueprint for teleportation that required no power source. If it worked, it would change everything about space travel. Ambassador Zethrix finished her report. The council chamber was silent. Every delegate understood what this meant. Humans had done in 18 months what entire civilizations could not do in millennia. This is the 5th major mystery they have solved since joining us, Zethrix said. At this rate, they will solve problems that we did not even know we had. High Counselor Tormak leaned back in his seat. His ancient face showed a mix of emotions, wonder, concern, and something that might have been hope. We need to speak with these humans, he said finally. We need to understand how they do this, and we need to decide what it means for all of us. The council voted unanimously to send a delegation to Earth. They would study humans up close. They would try to learn their secrets. None of them knew that this decision would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory at the Beijing Advanced Science Institute, staring at a holographic model of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of unsolved mysteries. There were thousands of them. Some were small questions about local phenomena. Others were vast enigmas that spanned entire sectors. We have a lot of work to do, she said to her team. James Okonkwo nodded. He was still celebrating his success with the resonance equation, but he was already eager to start on the next problem. Which one do we tackle first? Sarah pointed to a cluster of red dots near the galactic core. The Eldari sent us new data this morning. They have a theory about these. The dots represented the silent zones. These were regions of space where all communication failed. Ships could enter them but could never send signals out. Those that came back reported strange experiences. Time seemed to move differently inside. Some crews aged years while only minutes passed outside. Others experienced the opposite. The Eldari think the zones are artificial, Sarah explained. They believe an ancient civilization created them as prisons or storage areas, but no one has ever found an entrance or figured out what is inside. Marcus Webb, fresh from his work on the gravity wells, leaned forward with interest. A storage area in space, that could hold anything, knowledge from extinct civilizations, technology we cannot imagine. Or something dangerous, Sarah reminded him, something that someone wanted to lock away. Either way, we should investigate, James said. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the Institute's AI system. A diplomatic vessel had arrived in orbit. The Galactic Council's delegation was here. The team exchanged glances. They had known this was coming. Word of their achievements had spread fast. The galaxy was paying attention now. I will meet them, Sarah said. You two keep working. We have too much to do to stop now. She made her way to the Institute's landing pad. A sleek silver ship touched down with barely a whisper. Its design was Mechari, she recognized, built for comfort and diplomacy rather than speed. 3 beings stepped out. The first was a Mechari, tall and gray with deep-set eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. The second was a Vorelin with shimmering blue skin and 4 eyes that studied everything at once. The third surprised her. It was an Eldari. Sarah had never seen an Eldari in person before. They rarely left their homeworld. This one was slender and pale, with features that seemed carved from marble. Its eyes were silver and ageless. Dr. Chen, the Mechari spoke first. I am Counselor Tormak. This is Ambassador Zethrix of the Vorelins and Historian Seelith of the Eldari. Seelith, Sarah smiled. We have talked many times through messages, but I never expected to meet you in person. The Eldari inclined his head. Your achievements have made this visit necessary. The Council wishes to understand how your species accomplishes what others cannot. Sarah led them inside. The Institute was a modern building of glass and steel, filled with laboratories and research spaces. Scientists worked in every corner, surrounded by holographic displays and advanced equipment. Tormak observed everything with keen interest. Your facilities are impressive, but they are not more advanced than ours. If anything, your technology is simpler. That is true, Sarah admitted. We only joined the galactic community recently. We are still catching up with what others have built. Then how do you solve problems that we cannot? Zethrix asked. Sarah thought about how to answer. Maybe it is because we are not weighed down by what you know. When we look at a problem, we see it fresh. We do not know what is supposed to be impossible. Seelith made a sound of understanding. You are not limited by precedent. You do not assume that because something has not been done, it cannot be done. Exactly, Sarah said. We also work differently. We argue with each other. We challenge ideas. We throw out theories that do not work and start over. I think some older civilizations are more careful, more patient. We have time, Seelith said. Humans do not. Your lives are short. Perhaps that drives you to work faster. It was an interesting theory. Sarah had thought about it herself. Humans lived only 100 years or so, while many galactic species lived for thousands. Did mortality make them more urgent, more willing to take risks? Show us how you work, Tormak requested. We want to see your methods in action. Sarah took them to her main laboratory. Her team was there, working on several projects at once. James had moved on from the resonance equation and was now studying the silent zones. Marcus was designing a new probe to explore the gravity well tunnels. Other scientists worked on smaller mysteries that had been sent by various civilizations. The visitors watched in silence as the humans argued, debated, and proposed wild ideas. Some ideas were quickly dismissed. Others sparked new lines of thinking. The atmosphere was chaotic and energetic. This is very different from how we work, Zethrix observed. Our scientists prefer solitary study. They think before they speak. We think out loud, James explained. Sometimes the best ideas come from combining half-formed thoughts. Two wrong ideas can become one right idea if you smash them together the right way. Seelith found this fascinating. The Eldari method was opposite. They would contemplate a problem for decades before sharing any thoughts. By then, their ideas were fully formed and difficult to challenge. Perhaps that is why we get stuck, he admitted. We commit to ideas too deeply before testing them. The delegation stayed for 3 days. They observed everything. They asked countless questions. They tried to understand the human approach to problem solving. On the last day, Tormek requested a private meeting with Sarah. "I must tell you something," he said, his deep voice heavy with concern. "Not all in the galaxy are pleased with human achievements." Sarah had expected this. "We have heard rumors. Some species see us as a threat." "More than a threat," Tormek said. "Some believe that humans are disturbing things that should remain undisturbed. The ancient mysteries are ancient for a reason. Perhaps they were meant to stay unsolved." "That does not make sense," Sarah argued. "Knowledge is knowledge. It should be shared and used." "Not all knowledge is safe," Tormek warned. "Some things were hidden by design. The civilizations that came before us were not fools. If they left puzzles behind, perhaps they expected only certain species to solve them." This was new information. Sarah frowned. "Are you saying we should stop?" "I am saying you should be careful," Tormek replied. "The silence zones, for example. No one knows what is inside them. If you find a way in, you might release something that was meant to stay contained." It was a fair warning. Sarah promised to be cautious, but deep down she knew that humans would keep exploring. That was their nature. They could not leave a mystery unsolved. The delegation departed the next morning. Their report to the Galactic Council would change many opinions about humanity, but it would also start new conversations, new debates about whether the young species should be helped or hindered. Meanwhile, Sarah returned to her laboratory. James had made progress on the silence zones. He had found a pattern in the boundaries, a rhythm that suggested artificial creation. "I think I know how to get inside," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. Sarah looked at the data. James was right. They were on the verge of another breakthrough. She thought about Tormek's warning. Then she pushed it aside. Caution was important, but so was curiosity. The ancient mysteries were calling. And humans always answered the call. The first expedition to the silence zones launched 3 months later. James Okonkwo led the scientific team. Marcus Webb piloted the specially designed ship. Dr. Sarah Chen stayed behind to coordinate, but she watched everything through a live feed. The ship approached the boundary of the nearest silence zone. Sensors showed the strange distortion that marked its edge. Beyond it, space looked normal but was not. The laws of physics worked differently inside. "Beginning boundary penetration," Marcus announced. "Everyone hold on." The ship crossed into the zone. Immediately, all communication with the outside cut off. They were alone. Inside, the crew experienced the strange time effects they had heard about. Minutes felt like hours. Then hours felt like seconds. It was disorienting and frightening. But James focused on his instruments. He had programmed them to look for something specific, a door. There, he pointed at the display. A structure, artificial, about 2 light minutes ahead. The ship moved toward it. As they approached, they saw it clearly for the first time. It was a station, ancient beyond measure, built by a civilization that had vanished long ago, and according to the sensors, something inside was still active. Something was waiting for them. The ancient station hung in the void like a forgotten monument. Its surface was covered with symbols that no living being had seen in millennia. The metal, if it was metal, did not reflect light the way it should. Instead, it seemed to absorb it, making the structure appear more like a shadow than a solid object. James Okonkwo pressed his face close to the observation window. His heart was beating fast. This was the moment he had dreamed of, an actual relic from a lost civilization, something that predated the Eldari themselves. "I am reading power signatures," said Dr. Amara Nwasu, the team's energy specialist. She was a calm woman from Nigeria who rarely showed excitement, but even she could not hide the wonder in her voice. "This thing is still running after all this time." Marcus Webb guided the ship toward what looked like a docking port. The station seemed to recognize them. Lights flickered on along its surface, creating a path to the entrance. "It knows we are here," Marcus said quietly. "Good," James replied. "Let's not keep it waiting." They docked without problems. The airlock connected smoothly, as if designed for their ship, even though that was impossible. The station predated humanity by at least 100,000 years. The team suited up and entered the station. The corridor inside was tall and wide, built for beings larger than humans. The walls were covered with more symbols, glowing faintly with internal light. The air was stale but breathable. "The translation algorithms are struggling," James said, examining his tablet. "These symbols do not match anything in the galactic database." "Maybe they predate the database," Amara suggested. They walked deeper into the station. The corridors branched and connected in patterns that seemed random at first but gradually revealed logic. This was not just a station. It was a library, a repository of knowledge. In the central chamber, they found what they were looking for. A massive crystalline structure rose from the floor to the ceiling. It pulsed with soft light, cycling through colors that had no names in any human language. "This is it," James whispered. "This is why the silence zones exist. They were created to protect this." Marcus approached the crystal carefully. "How do we access it?" As if hearing his question, the crystal responded. Light flowed from its surface and formed into shapes. Images appeared in the air around them, scenes from the past, a civilization at its height, beings of light and energy, not flesh and blood. They built wonders across the galaxy. They solved every problem they faced. They reached the peak of what life could achieve. Then something went wrong. The images showed conflict, not between civilizations but within one, a debate that turned into a war. One side believed that knowledge should be shared freely. The other believed that some knowledge was too dangerous and should be hidden. The war ended badly for both sides. The civilization destroyed itself. But before the end, the survivors created the silent zones. They hid their greatest discoveries inside, hoping that one day a species worthy enough would find them. They left tests, James realized. The mysteries we have been solving, they are tests, entrance exams. Amara nodded slowly, and we have been passing them. The crystal pulsed again. A new image formed, a door. Beyond it, endless knowledge waited, cures for diseases, solutions to problems the galaxy had not even discovered yet, technology that could transform everything. But there was also a warning. With great knowledge came great responsibility. The civilization that built this place had failed that test. They hoped that whoever came next would do better. "This is too big for us to handle alone," Marcus said. "We need to contact the council." "We cannot contact anyone from in here," James reminded him. "That is the whole point. We have to decide ourselves." The team debated for hours. The weight of the decision pressed down on them. They could take everything. They could become the most advanced species in the galaxy overnight, or they could be careful, take only what they could handle, share it slowly. In the end, they chose caution, not because they feared the knowledge, but because they respected it. The beings who built this place had warned them. Rushing forward had destroyed a civilization far older and wiser than humanity. They downloaded what they could understand: basic data, safe technology, the location of other repositories. Then they left, taking only what they could carry without causing harm. When they exited the silent zone, they found a fleet waiting for them. Ships from a dozen civilizations hung in space. News of the expedition had spread, and everyone wanted to know what they had found. Dr. Sarah Chen was on one of those ships. She contacted the team immediately. "What happened in there?" she asked. James smiled tiredly. "We found the answers, all of them, but we are not ready for most of them yet." He sent her the data they had collected. It was more than enough to change everything. New energy sources, new medicines, new ways of traveling through space, but it was also measured, controlled, released carefully so that the galaxy could adapt. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session when they received the news. Delegates argued about what this meant. Some praised the humans for their restraint. Others demanded access to everything they had found. Counselor Tormac called for order. "The humans have given us more than we expected. They found the greatest treasure in the galaxy and chose to share it responsibly. That deserves our respect." Seelith the Eldari agreed. "For 2 million years we have searched for these repositories. We assumed they did not exist or had been destroyed. The humans found them in less than 2 years. Their methods work." "But they are still withholding knowledge," objected a delegate from the crystalline worlds. "They admit there is more. Why do they not share everything?" Sarah Chen stepped forward to answer. She had traveled to the council chamber to speak in person. "Because we learned something important in that station. The civilization that built it was more advanced than any of us. They had solved every scientific problem that exists, and they still destroyed themselves." The chamber fell silent. "Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous," Sarah continued. "We could give you everything now, weapons that could destroy stars, power sources that could collapse dimensions, technologies that even we do not understand. But what would happen? Would we use them wisely? Would we become like those who came before, tearing ourselves apart over disagreements?" No one had an answer. "We will share everything eventually," Sarah promised. "But slowly, carefully, as the galaxy proves it can handle it. This is not about controlling power, it is about ensuring survival." The council debated for days. In the end, they accepted the human proposal. A joint committee was formed to manage the release of new technologies. Each advancement would be tested and studied before being shared widely. It was not a perfect solution. Some species grumbled about being treated like children. Others worried that humans had too much control, but most recognized the wisdom in the approach. Meanwhile, the human scientific community continued its work. The data from the repository opened new doors every day. They solved mysteries that had puzzled species for millennia. They found cures for diseases that had killed billions. They developed cleaner energy and faster travel. But they also found warnings. The repository contained records of other civilizations that had failed, species that had gained too much too fast and burned out like stars going supernova. The pattern was clear. Advancement without growth led to destruction. James Okonkwo became the face of this new era. He traveled the galaxy, explaining humanity's approach to problem-solving. He taught other species to question their assumptions, to try new methods, to fail fast and learn faster. "We are not smarter than you," he told audiences everywhere. "We just do not know what is impossible. That makes us willing to try things that you gave up on long ago." Not everyone accepted this message. Some resented the humans for their success. Others feared what they might do next, but most were grateful. The galaxy was changing for the better. 5 years after the first expedition to the Silent Zone, humanity faced its greatest challenge yet. One of the repositories they had discovered contained not knowledge but a prisoner, a being of pure energy trapped for 1 million years. It called itself the First. It was the last survivor of the civilization that had built the repositories. The First was not evil, it was not angry, it was simply tired. It had watched the galaxy through the walls of its prison for countless millennia. It had seen species rise and fall. It had hoped that one day someone worthy would come. You passed the tests, it said to the humans who freed it, not because you are the smartest or the strongest, but because you are the most curious. You never stop asking why. The first offered them a gift, the complete knowledge of its civilization. Everything it had learned in 2 million years of existence, all of it could be theirs. James considered the offer carefully. What do you want in return? Only that you succeed where we failed, the first replied. Build something that lasts. Create a galaxy where knowledge is free but wisdom is honored. Do better than we did. It was a heavy responsibility, but humanity had grown into its role. They were no longer just scientists solving puzzles. They were leaders, teachers, and guardians. We will try, James promised. That is all we can do. Try and keep trying and never give up. The first smiled, if a being of pure energy could smile. That is why I chose you. Among all the species I have watched, you are the only ones who truly understand that the journey matters more than the destination. It began the transfer. Knowledge flowed from it to the human databases. Centuries of learning compressed into moments. The sum total of a civilization's achievements preserved for the next generation. When it was done, the first began to fade. Its long existence was finally ending. It had completed its mission. Thank you, James said as it disappeared. We will not forget you. I know, the first replied. That is enough. The galaxy continued to change in the years that followed. Humanity worked alongside the other species, sharing what they had learned. Old enemies became friends. Long-standing problems found solutions. The darkness of space became a little brighter. And through it all, the humans kept asking questions, kept pushing boundaries, kept solving mysteries that others had abandoned long ago. Because that was their gift. Not intelligence or strength or advanced technology, just an endless, burning curiosity that refused to accept impossible. The ancient civilizations had left their marks on the galaxy. Now humanity was adding its own. And they were just getting started. The transfer of knowledge from the first changed everything. For 3 months, the human scientific community worked around the clock to organize and understand what they had received. It was like trying to drink an ocean through a straw. Every day brought new discoveries that rewrote textbooks and shattered old assumptions. Dr. Sarah Chen coordinated the effort from the Beijing Advanced Science Institute. She had aged in the 6 years since humans first joined the Galactic Council, but her eyes still burned with the same fierce curiosity that had driven her entire career. We need to be strategic about this, she told her team during one of their daily meetings. We cannot release everything at once. The galaxy is not ready. James Okonkwo nodded. He had become her most trusted advisor, a brilliant mind who understood both the science and the politics of their situation. I have been reviewing the historical records. The first civilization took 1 million years to develop this knowledge. We cannot expect others to absorb it in a decade. The problem was that not everyone agreed with their cautious approach. Word had spread about what the humans had received. Species across the galaxy demanded access. Some were polite, others were not. The Krellian Empire was among the loudest voices. The Krellians were a warrior species from the outer rim of the galaxy. They had built their civilization on conquest and strength. For centuries, they had stayed quiet, kept in check by the more advanced species of the Council, but the promise of new power made them bold. The humans hoard knowledge that belongs to everyone, declared Emperor Voss during a council session. His massive frame towered over the other delegates. His 3 eyes burned with barely contained fury. They think themselves better than us, superior. They are wrong. Sarah stood to respond. She was small compared to the Krellian leader, but she did not flinch. We share everything that is safe to share. We have released more technology in 6 years than the galaxy developed in the previous 1,000. But some knowledge requires preparation to use safely. You mean you do not trust us? Voss growled. I mean that some technologies can destroy civilizations if used incorrectly, Sarah replied. The species that created this knowledge nearly wiped themselves out. We will not repeat their mistake. The debate continued for hours. In the end, the council voted to support the human approach, but the vote was closer than before. The Krellians were gaining allies among the impatient and the ambitious. Counselor Tormak warned Sarah after the session. You have made enemies today. The Krellians do not forgive easily. I know, Sarah said, but we are right. Rushing this would be a disaster. Being right is not always enough, the old Mekari replied. Sometimes you must also be strong. His words proved prophetic. 2 months later, the Krellians attacked. Their target was Research Station 7, a joint human-Eldari facility where some of the most sensitive technologies were being studied. A fleet of Krellian warships appeared without warning and opened fire. The station's defenses held for 30 minutes. That was long enough to send a distress signal, but not long enough for help to arrive. When the Krellians boarded, they found what they were looking for: data crystals containing advanced weapons designs, power sources that could fuel fleets, technology that could make them unstoppable. The news shocked the galaxy. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session again. War seemed inevitable. But James Okonkwo had a different idea. The Krellians took the data they wanted, he told the council. But they did not take everything. We knew this might happen. We prepared. He explained that the data crystals contained incomplete information. The weapons designs were flawed. The power sources were unstable. Any attempt to use them would fail catastrophically. You sabotaged your own research, Emperor Voss demanded through a communication screen. He had not dared to appear in person. We prepared for theft, James corrected. The real knowledge is stored elsewhere, in formats that cannot be copied or transferred, only shared freely when we decide the time is right. The Krellians tried to use what they had stolen anyway. The results were devastating. 3 of their largest shipyards exploded when they attempted to build the new weapons. Thousands died. Their fleet was crippled. Emperor Voss was overthrown by his own generals. The new Krellian government sued for peace. They agreed to all of the council's demands in exchange for medical technology to save those injured in the explosions. The crisis ended, but it left scars. The galaxy now understood that humans could be dangerous when threatened. They were not just clever scientists. They were strategic thinkers who planned for every possibility. Some species feared this new understanding. Others respected it. But everyone took humans more seriously afterward. Sarah Chen used the crisis as an opportunity. She proposed a new framework for sharing knowledge. Species that wanted access to advanced technology would need to demonstrate responsibility. They would need to show that they could use it wisely. Think of it as education, she explained to the council. You do not give weapons to children, you teach them first. You help them grow. Only then do you trust them with dangerous tools. The proposal was controversial. Many species resented being treated as students. But the Krellian disaster had proven the point. Rushing ahead without preparation led to catastrophe. Over the next decade, the framework took shape. Species worked through levels of advancement. Each level brought new knowledge and new responsibilities. Competition was replaced by cooperation. Former rivals became partners. The silence zones were explored one by one. Each contained new repositories of knowledge. Some held technology, others held art, history, and philosophy. The picture of the ancient civilization became clearer. They had been brilliant and creative, but also flawed. Their final gift to the galaxy was not just what they knew, but what they had learned from their mistakes. James Okonkwo became the first human to receive the Eldari Medal of Wisdom, an honor that had not been given in 50,000 years. Sealith presented it to him during a ceremony attended by representatives from every species in the galaxy. "You have done what we could not," Seelith said. "You have unlocked the past and opened the future. The galaxy is better because of humans." James accepted the medal with humility. "We only did what anyone would do. We asked questions and refused to stop until we found answers." But he knew that was not entirely true. Other species had asked questions too. They had just stopped asking when the answers seemed too hard to find. Humans kept going. That was the difference. The years continued to pass. The galaxy transformed in ways that would have seemed impossible a generation earlier. Disease became rare. Poverty faded. Wars ended not because anyone won, but because everyone realized there was more to gain from peace. New mysteries emerged to replace the old ones. The galaxy was vast and full of secrets, but now those secrets did not seem so threatening. They were puzzles waiting to be solved, adventures waiting to be had. Dr. Sarah Chen retired at the age of 92. She had seen humanity rise from newcomers to leaders of a galactic renaissance. Her final public speech was given at the opening of the Chen Okonkwo Institute for Galactic Studies, a research center that would carry on her work for generations to come. "When we first joined the council, they saw us as children," she said to the assembled crowd. "Curious, yes, clever perhaps, but young and inexperienced, not worth taking seriously." She paused, looking out at the audience. Beings from dozens of species sat side by side. Some had tentacles, others had wings. A few were made of light or crystal or things that defied easy description. All of them were listening. "They were right about one thing," Sarah continued. "We are curious, insatiably, impossibly curious. We cannot leave a question unanswered. We cannot accept that something is impossible. We pick at puzzles until they unravel. We climb mountains because they are there." She smiled, her aged face creasing with joy. "That is not weakness, that is our greatest strength. And now it belongs to all of you. Go forth. Ask questions. Never stop wondering. Never stop trying. The galaxy is yours to discover." The crowd erupted in applause. Species that had once feared humanity now celebrated them. The future stretched out before them, bright and full of promise. Somewhere in a laboratory, a young scientist from a species that humans had never met before bent over a puzzle that had been unsolved for 10,000 years. She had learned the human methods. She refused to give up. An hour later, she found the answer. She raised her head and smiled. The work continued. The mysteries waited. And one by one, they would all be solved. 20 years after Dr. Sarah Chen's retirement speech, a new crisis emerged. It came not from within the galaxy but from beyond it. Sensors at the edge of known space detected something impossible. A structure larger than any star. A megastructure that seemed to span light years. It was approaching the galaxy from the intergalactic void. The Galactic Council mobilized immediately. Ships were sent to investigate. Scientists analyzed every scrap of data. Fear spread through civilizations that had grown used to peace and progress. Dr. Annika Okonkwo, granddaughter of James Okonkwo, led the first contact team. She was young, only 32, but she carried her grandfather's legacy with pride. Like him, she believed that every mystery had a solution. "We do not know who built this or why it is here," she told her crew as their ship approached the megastructure. "But we will find out. That is what we do." The structure was magnificent and terrifying. Up close, it revealed itself as a ship of sorts, a vessel designed to travel between galaxies over millions of years. Its surface was covered with the same symbols that James had found in the Silence Zones decades ago. This is their work, Annika realized. The ancient civilization, the ones who left the repositories. She was right. The megaship was a seed vessel designed to carry the essence of a civilization to new galaxies. It had been launched 2 million years ago when the ancients faced their final crisis. While some chose to hide their knowledge in repositories, others chose to flee, to start over somewhere else. But something had gone wrong. The ship had drifted off course. It had spent millennia lost in the void between galaxies. Its crew had long since died or evolved into something else. Now it was returning home, drawn by signals from the knowledge that had been unlocked. Annika led her team aboard. The interior of the ship was vast beyond comprehension. Entire ecosystems existed within it, species that had evolved over millions of years in isolation. Some were friendly, others were not. Navigating the ship took months. Annika and her crew faced challenges that tested every skill they possessed. They solved puzzles that made the old mysteries look simple. They negotiated with beings that had never encountered humanoid life. They survived dangers that would have destroyed lesser explorers. In the heart of the ship, they found what they were looking for, a control center that still functioned, and within it, a message. The message was from the last surviving member of the original crew, a being who had transformed itself into pure energy to survive the long journey. It had waited 2 million years for someone to come. "You found us," it said, its voice echoing through the chamber. "We did not think anyone would." "We are humans," Annika replied. "We find things, it is what we do." The being laughed, a sound like music and thunder combined. "Yes, we have watched. From here, we could see the signals from the repositories. We saw you unlock them one by one. We hoped that one day you would find us too." It explained the ship's purpose. The ancients had not just fled their galaxy. They had planned to return, to rebuild when the time was right. But 2 million years of isolation had changed them. They no longer knew if they could live among others. "We are different now," the being admitted. "Perhaps too different, but we still carry the knowledge of our ancestors, the final pieces of the puzzle. With them you could solve any mystery, build anything, become anything." Annika considered the offer. It was tempting, but she remembered her grandfather's stories, his warnings about the dangers of too much too fast. "What do you want in return?" she asked. "A home," the being replied. "We have traveled for so long, we are tired. We want to rest among others who understand us, who value what we know." It was a reasonable request, but Annika knew it would not be simple. The megaship carried millions of beings, entire civilizations. Introducing them to the galaxy would be a challenge unlike any they had faced. "We will need to prepare," she said. "This will take time, years, maybe decades, but we will make it work." The being nodded, its energy form flickering with something like hope. "We have waited 2 million years. We can wait a little longer." Annika returned to the galaxy with the news. The Galactic Council debated for months. Some opposed allowing the ancients to return. Others welcomed them as long-lost family. In the end, the decision was made to open their arms. The integration took 30 years. It was difficult and complicated and sometimes painful. But it worked. The ancients brought knowledge that filled the gaps in everything the repositories had offered. Mysteries that had lingered for generations were finally solved. More importantly, they brought perspective. They were living proof that civilizations could survive their own mistakes, that the future did not have to repeat the past. That hope was not foolish but essential. Dr. Annika Okonkwo lived to see her 100th birthday. She spent her final years teaching young scientists from a dozen species. Her classrooms were filled with beings who would have been enemies a century ago, but were now colleagues and friends. "The universe is full of mysteries," she told them during her last lecture. "Every answer leads to new questions. That is not frustrating. That is beautiful. It means there will always be more to discover, more to learn, more to become." She looked out at her students, seeing the future in their eager faces. "We started as one small species on one small planet. Now we are part of something vast beyond imagining. We got here by asking questions and refusing to give up. Never forget that. Never stop wondering. Never stop trying." She smiled one last time. "The mysteries are waiting. Go find them." The universe stretched out before them, infinite and unknown. Civilizations that had once given up now pushed forward with renewed energy. Problems that had seemed unsolvable yielded to persistent effort and creative thinking. Humanity had shown the way, not by being the strongest or the smartest, but by being the most stubborn, the most curious, the most unwilling to accept that anything was truly impossible. And now that spirit had spread to every corner of the galaxy. The legacy of those first human scientists who had looked at ancient mysteries and refused to walk away, who had proven that with enough determination, any puzzle could be cracked. The stars continued to burn. Species rose and fell and rose again. But the spirit of discovery endured. It passed from generation to generation, species to species, like a flame that could never be extinguished. Because somewhere always, someone was looking at the impossible and deciding to try anyway. That was the gift humanity had given the galaxy. And it would last forever.